whoop. That's not supposed to be looping. Good evening. This is the Dominance Academy. Welcome. Oh boy, what a day. I'm not stoned. I have red eyes because I just washed my face. So, fair warning. But yeah, I hope you're having a good weekend. Oh my gosh. Holidays are upon us. Well, at least for those of you in America who celebrate Christmas anyways. But yeah. This will be the third time I'm streaming today. I did with the manhood as a skill set in the morning, and then in the afternoon did a webinar, and now here I am on my own channel. So, got to make the rounds. Got to make the rounds. Yep. But yeah, I wanted to got this topic about nice guy doms, and it's very much like just the nice guy in general, but when you throw it into the mix of a power dynamic, it gets pretty bad. It gets even worse. So this is the case with like a lot of stuff. Okay, so you could have a good thing and throw it into a power dynamic and it becomes a great thing. You could have a pretty shitty thing, throw it into a power dynamic, and it becomes an awful thing. And this is what happens with the nice guy stuff. Nice guys, they're treacherous. They're treacherous beings. And this is, it makes it even more treacherous when brought into a dynamic. Why is that? Well, because you're dealing with submissives. And these are, submissives are people who, in varying degrees, have a strong desire to submit. They have a strong desire to open up. They have a desire to be owned. They have a desire to, they have a desire to yield. And, when you bring in the nice guy feature, that really kind of alters stuff, right? Because the nice guy, what does he do? He obfuscates, and he uses deception, and in a way that's hard to detect. And this is why a lot of girls, just in general, they get duped by nice guys. And sometimes these nice guys will flip on them, and they'll become angry, they'll become violent, they'll become possessive, or just emotionally unhinged in some other kind of way. And this is pretty dangerous stuff, because when you're in a dynamic, it's like I said with other things, it's turned up. The volume is turned up on many features. So, yeah. Yeah, I feel for these ladies. I don't mean to cape for girls, but I'm so glad I'm not a girl. Things are just a lot easier. You guys complain about being guys. You're like, oh, being a man is so hard. we got it good, man. Oh, come on, dog. There's nothing. Hang on a second. Little fuckers just barking for no reason. Like there's nothing going on. But what do I know? I don't have like 100x hearing the way a dog does. Imagine having dog hearing. Like you can just fucking hear everything. And then have an impulse to say something about it. Like that's being a dog. But yeah, so nice guys, you know, it's pretty bad. And the thing is that makes it difficult in a dynamic is that a dynamic for a dom, it's required that you're taking on a certain element of responsibility, because you're saying I want the power, or someone is handing over power, and so you can either overtly say this, or it's just implied that the dom is taking power, is holding a lot of power, and she's trusting you with it. And you know, for the nice guy, he's really in it for himself. He's really in it to satisfy his own broken needs. That's what he's there for, to satisfy his broken needs, much like a regular nice guy. He's not there to be there for the woman. Like really, that's what it looks like on the surface, of course. But it's really all just very, very self-serving. And you'd be surprised at how many dudes there are with nice guy syndrome. And they don't even realize it. It's a massive epidemic. I think, like in my estimation, it's over 50%. Like over 50% of the guys, at least like in the United States, I can say, have some degree of nice guy syndrome. Excuse me. Really bad. And so I understand when girls are like, where are the men? And because, you know, they look at me and I'm like, I don't know. I just live in my world. But oh shit, there's a Christmas pack on. Oh God. I gotta yell at this fucking dog. Ooh, there we go. Christmas pack. Let's see. This one's kind of cute. No. All right, I like this one. We're gonna go with this. There we go. We'll take a break on the bondage girls. But I like my bondage girls. Anyways. Yeah, I'm taking shibari classes, and that's been fun. Shibari. If you want to learn something cool, and you have, let's say you've got a patient personality, or at the very least you like to challenge your patients, learn some shibari. You know, because typically in the past, I'm the kind of person who wants to get them bound up as quick as possible. You know, because traversing from unbounds to bounds, there's nothing really interesting in there for me. I never really understood. So I just want to get them bound. So I use leather, I use cuffs, sometimes Velcro, or the stuff called like BDSM tape, which it's a very thin vinyl that sticks to itself. But it's not sticky like tape. It's just, it has friction. And so it has like a friction bond to itself, but you can unravel it. So it's good for like, say like binding like an arm closed. Like if you bend your arm, you could wrap it around that so it stays closed. I mean, you can bind anything really. It's quick. All right. So I like this stuff because it's very fast, but rope, I'm just like, oh God, you have to like wind this around and pull it through and get the right knot, and then like, okay, move on to here and wind, and like just to get the girl into the position and with the right kind of tension and all that stuff, you know, it could take like 20 minutes, maybe a half hour, 40 minutes. I don't know. Depends on the complexity, I suppose. And I said, you know what? I'm telling myself that I don't have the patience for this. But really, the truth of the matter is my ego was like, I don't want to face something that I don't have knowledge in. Because I kind of pride myself on being knowledgeable. So, of course, anything that challenges that view of my own ego, I would veer away from. But this, I was like, okay, come on, stop being a child. Go learn some rope. Okay. So I'm learning shibari, and it's actually quite interesting. Really interesting. So, and there's some cool people. Like, people are like way far into the scene and stuff. Like, they're like rope nerds. And then there's people who are, I met some people who were deep into the New York BDSM scene, and I'm not part of anything. Like, I've never been like a fanboy or a group type person. I never was into like sports teams. I never had like this group, like herd sort of mentality with anything really. And so, I'm just observing these other cliques and groups and shit like that. Yeah, but it's interesting. Yeah. So let's get into this. Let's get into this lecture about the dangerous nice guy Dom, right? The demon who wears the mask, right? Because the Dom, he doesn't wear the mask. He straight up he's the demon, right? His shadow has come out, and it doesn't run rampant, hopefully, but it's out. My sub, she once asked me, why I depict demons, this male, like blue-skinned or gray-skinned demon in a lot of my thumbnails and some of my IG posts and things like that. And I said, well, why don't you tell me? Like, tell me what your thoughts and feelings are on that. And she guessed it right. That it's nothing. It's not like nothing to be feared. It has nothing to do with, this Judeo-Christian view of the demon, and that it's this evil. But it is darkness. But it's taking darkness into like a different context. Darkness of the psyche. Okay, darkness of the soul. And there's something about like embracing one's darkness. And if that is to be characterized as the demon, then it's like embracing that aspect of oneself. Embracing, those things that one would shame about themselves or feel guilty about oneself. And not stuffing into a corner. Not pretending that it doesn't exist, but fully saying, yes, this exists. And it's unique. Some might characterize it as a little messed up, but I am more free than you are. I'm living as an honest, authentic being who does have certain proclivities, right, towards certain things that some people might find unusual, but there's other people who don't find it unusual at all. And so that's why I have the demon up, because the thing is about the demon is that people think that it's a liar. No, the demon, the way I see it anyways, is the raw honesty. He's going to tell you and show you the truth of what you don't want to see. That's the shadow. It's going to reveal to you exactly who you are. And instead of being shocked by it or ashamed by it, just accepting it, saying, yep, that's me. That's me in my totality. And it's not inherently bad. It's not inherently sinful or evil or disgusting. It's just what is, right? And but it's not saying it's good either. It just is. And I think that this is one of the best places to be once you can comfortably settle there, where you're not trying to push any sort of agenda onto yourself, any sort of like moral agenda of being like, oh, this is good, this is bad, instead of just saying, this is what it is. Now, of course, if you're coming into something that has to do with causing some sort of non-consensual harm onto someone, then I think, yes, that's got to be questioned, okay? Because that's not conducive to positivity, life, growth, happiness, and all that good shit, So, but other things, someone could look at it and go, wow, that's not good. That's unhealthy. I've had these criticisms by some people, and where they've said, you know what, that's immoral behavior. And the thing is that I know in their head, they have immoral thoughts. They've got immoral desires. Well, if looking at their lens, or through their lens of moral and immoral, and that's the only reason why it's seen that way. But I don't have a lens. I'm just looking at things just as they are and not judging them. And the thing is that that's what allows me to function as close as possible to being authentic. Because I do think that because we're just in certain societies, we do have certain conditionings that just don't go away. We do have silent contracts and social norms, but so that's why it's as close as possible. But it's what allows me to live as authentically as I possibly can, and the woman that I'm with, allow her, by following my guidance, by following my my system, my way of going about things, otherwise my program, it allows her to show up authentically. And now so you've got two people who are synergistically trying to show up as authentically as possible to each other and in the world. And this is what I think we need more of. Okay? Not more like bottlenecking of our existence. Trying to fit very narrow molds, very narrow shapes. And some might say, well, that sounds very liberal. And I can see that. I can see that might be a very liberal thing. However, what remains underneath all of that, for me, is a very clear and distinct yin and yang. Very clear and distinct differential between the masculine energy and the feminine energy. And this is unchanging. This is a universal norm, like the way gravity is a universal norm. This is unchanging. It's forever. It's eternal. And well, I don't know if it's eternal, but who knows? The entire reality might end at some point. But so I guess it's not eternal, but you get my point. It's an essential aspect of reality. Let's just say that. So there's always going to be differentials. There's always going to be duality. And I think that when we are more operating within duality, this is when we have the greatest harmony. I'm reminded of a Clubhouse discussion that was happening not too long ago, today, actually. So earlier today. And there was this guy. It was an all black room. And what was the main discussion? Fuck, I can't remember the name of the room. But there's this one guy in there, this white guy. And we were the only two white guys. And I'm just seeing if the room is still there, if I can remember the name of the room, the title. But he was like super feminist, this other white guy. And lo and behold, he was from Europe. He was from actually Sweden, which is a really, it was about like patriarchy type stuff. And he was like so far against patriarchy. Oh, that's what it was. The topic was, in Black America, is there a patriarchy? And this guy coming in from Sweden, this white guy from Sweden, never stepped a foot on American soil, let alone going into a black neighborhood or inside black homes. And he was sitting there saying, no, there's patriarchy everywhere, like globally, including in America and in as well as Black American families. And the guys in the room, they were all just like, nah, that's not the case. Like it's totally a matriarchy. And he's going off on, this whole rocker, where he's just defending this whole notion of like patriarchy is everywhere, subjugating women to shit all over the place. And this guy pointed out, and he's like, listen, in your country, in Sweden, it's known to be one of the most like egalitarian nations. Yet when you look at what women are doing, they're doing, classically female type jobs, and men are doing classically male type jobs. What else was, and like in like interpersonal relationships, they're also assuming traditional roles, or roles that have, once been for quite a while. And, and so like this to me is just evidence that despite what we might create in society, what beliefs we might form in society about like how we should be and what should be this way and should be that way, it always comes back to some sort of underlying current of that differential, of that yin yang friction. And I think that people have come to understand that friction is bad. Friction is not bad. Friction is actually what holds things together. Like friction is the reason why our atoms are not just flying all apart. All right? They're held together with friction, like rubbing and being drawn together. There's it's a universal logic. And by attempting to come out with these more complicated, higher sort of things that are incredibly nuanced and completely manufactured, that it just takes us further and further away from that base polarity that's always been there. The base polarity that exists between the different poles of the earth, between day and night, form and void. It's all the same shit, just in like very macro to the very micro. It just is. And I think that, yes, we're very smart. We're a very smart species. Okay. We've made some incredible things on this planet, but sometimes I think that we're a little too smart for our own good, that our thinking actually gets in the way. I've told you this before. I don't really think all that much. Like if someone could get into my head and like see, mental activity or lack thereof, they'd probably think I was a dumbass. I don't think. I don't think about stuff. Like unless I purposely engage my brain to think and treat it like a tool. I treat my brain abilities like a tool. I don't spend much time just thinking. Like for what? It doesn't even make sense. And I went to this, I co-hosted this webinar with a friend of mine. And it was based more so on a program that he does to help guys kind of come out of, certain states to live a little bit more freely. And, because this guy lives a pretty free life. He's He's had harems. He travels the world. All kinds of all kinds of very interesting stuff with this guy. And so he draws in certain types of dudes who are like, hey, how do you do that? Like, how do you live the way you live? I want to feel as free as you. I want to have the experiences with women that you have. So, he starts teaching these guys, but at the very base level. And all of them have just this major problem. There was like maybe 10 or 12 guys in this webinar. They all had overthinking problems. I don't know what it is. Like, is it a form of like self-soothing? Is that what overthinking does? I mean, last I knew that when you do that, it just creates more anxiety. So why not just stop the thinking? I don't understand. So like, it can't bring comfort. I don't get it. I don't understand the purpose of continuously thinking or overthinking. And maybe it's a type of grasping where something feels outside of their control, and they believe that, maybe not conscious belief, but maybe habitually have come to the understanding that if they can think enough, they can come to some sort of resolution or some place of comfort where that situation will seem figured out, or maybe they will figure it out, and then that will allow them to feel calm. But the thing with that is that there's going to be another situation right behind it. I just don't understand. So if you're one of those people, certainly do some work to settle down your overthinking, because you're really doing nothing. You're not doing anything at all. Nothing at all. You're producing no fruit. It's a waste of time, energy, emotions, all sorts of shit, Okay, let's get to the task at hand, shall we? Okay, talk about these nice guy doms. I guess maybe this is more geared towards female listeners. But who knows? Maybe a male listener will be able to relate and go, oh, fuck, I'm a nice guy dom. All right, so the most dangerous man in modern power dynamics is not the abusive man. He's the one who gets the most airtime, the most attention, but that's because he's obvious. Women feel him immediately and either avoid him or leave scarred but wiser. The most dangerous man is the nice guy dom, because he hides his weakness behind manners, behind ideology, behind consent language, and a desire to be liked. The nice guy dom wants authority without the weight of responsibility. He wants obedience without earning trust. He wants submission without structure. And most of all, he wants the feeling of power without the internal discipline that makes power safe. Now, I think regular guys could relate with that. Wanting to feel the power without the internal discipline that makes the power safe. This man often believes he's enlightened. He's read the books. He knows the vocabulary. He speaks about communication, safety, aftercare, and boundaries. He tells himself he's different from other men. He prides himself on not being toxic, but underneath all of that is a core of instability. He is approval seeking. Approval seeking is the death of dominance. A dominant man does not need permission to be himself. He does not scan a woman's reactions to decide who he should become. He does not perform masculinity like a service job. The nice guy dom does all of this constantly, and he mistakes himself or his hyper-attunement for empathy. What he's actually doing is outsourcing his self-worth for her reactions. And this is where the rot begins. The nice guy dom frames his leadership as collaboration, but what he really means is negotiation. Every decision becomes a committee meeting. Every boundary becomes a discussion. Every correction is softened, delayed, or avoided. He believes this makes him safe. What it actually makes him is incoherent. Women do not relax in incoherence. At first, she may be drawn to him. He listens. He's careful. He seems considerate. He seems emotionally intelligent. And for a woman who has dealt with men who were blunt, selfish, or domineering, this can feel like a relief. But relief is not arousal, and safety without direction quickly becomes anxiety. And this is why women will leave even outside of a dynamic. Why they will leave a seemingly nice guy. Because he will provide safety. He will provide relief. But this is not arousing. And safety without direction becomes anxiety. Over time, she begins to feel something she can't quite name. She feels heavier, more alert, more watchful. She starts managing him emotionally. She starts anticipating his moods. She starts choosing her words carefully, not because he's dangerous, but because he's fragile. That fragility is the real problem. The nice guy Dom is deeply afraid of being seen as the bad guy. He avoids correction because he doesn't want to be resented. He avoids firmness because he equates it with cruelty. He avoids consequences because he wants to be loved. So when a woman crosses a line, he explains instead of enforces. When she disrespects him, he intellectualizes instead of correcting. And when she pulls away, he chases instead of grounding. From the outside, it looks gentle. From the inside, it feels unstable. Women are exquisitely sensitive to whether a man can tolerate their displeasure. A man who cannot tolerate a woman being unhappy with him, cannot lead her. He is already subordinate to her emotional state. She feels this immediately, even if she can't articulate it. This is why approval seeking kills dominance instantly. Dominance is not about being harsh. It's about being solid. It's about having an internal center that does not move just because someone is uncomfortable. A man who collapses the moment a woman frowns, withdraws, cries, or criticizes is not leading. He's reacting. And here's the part men don't like to hear. When a woman senses that a man is reacting to her instead of leading himself, she begins to test him. Not consciously or maliciously, but through her instincts. She pushes, she questions, she resists, and she pokes at his boundaries. She escalates emotion. She becomes sharper, more demanding, or even more chaotic. The nice guy Dom interprets this as her being difficult, ungrateful, or wounded. He doubles down on his softness. He gives more reassurance. He loosens structure for her. He believes he is being patient. What he's actually doing is training her nervous system to believe there was no one at the wheel. And this is where the resentment grows. She may begin to weaponize his softness. She learns that tears override his boundaries, that confusion delays consequences, that vulnerability disarms him, and that accusations make him retreat. None of this is calculated in a villainous way. It emerges naturally when structure is absent. Women don't respect what they can easily move. And here's the cruel paradox. The nice guy Dom often believes he is being respectful, but what he's really doing is avoiding the risk of being disliked. Respect and being liked are not the same thing. In fact, in intimate leadership, they often pull in opposite directions. A man who's respected may be disagreed with, challenged, and even momentarily resented. A man who is liked at all costs is eventually dismissed. And this is why the nice guy Dom ends up resented rather than respected. Resentment doesn't show up as hatred. It shows up as indifference, as withdrawal, as a woman becoming colder, less affectionate, less sexual, less responsive. It shows up as her becoming more masculine, more controlling, more directive, because someone has to run the relationship, and she hates herself for it. You get that? She doesn't hate him. She hates herself. She didn't want to be the one holding the structure. She wanted to relax into it. She wanted to soften. She wanted to follow. But she can't follow a man who won't stand. The nice guy Dom often asks quietly or aloud, why does she treat me this way when I'm so good to her? The answer is painful but simple. He is good to her, but not solid within himself. Goodness without backbone is not leadership. It's just appeasement. Real dominance does not come from intensity or cruelty or control. It comes from internal order, from a man knowing his standards and enforcing them calmly, from a man being willing to disappoint a woman in the short term to remain trustworthy in the long term, from a man who does not negotiate his identity every time someone has feelings. A dominant man does not ask for permission to have boundaries. He does not apologize for having preferences. He does not soften his truth to avoid discomfort. He does not outsource his authority to her reactions. He is not cruel, and he's not cold. He's not performative. He's consistent. Consistency is what women submit to. When a man is consistent, a woman stops testing. There's no reason to test something that's consistent. When she stops testing, she softens. When she softens, intimacy deepens. When intimacy deepens, devotion grows. This is the chain the nice guy Dom never completes, because he breaks it at the first link by abandoning himself. And here's the final truth that separates men who lead from men who posture. A dominant man would rather be respected than liked. Not because he wants power, but because he understands that respect creates safety, and safety allows love to deepen. The nice guy Dom wants to be loved first and hopes respect will follow, and it never does. A man who leads accepts the cost of leadership. He accepts that not everyone will approve. He accepts that firmness can create friction. He accepts that clarity can cause discomfort. And he accepts those costs because he understands the reward, a woman who can finally rest. Dominance is not about taking. It's about holding structure, direction, yourself, especially when emotions rise. Holding your standards when it would be easier to cave. Holding the line when softness tempts you to retreat. The man who can do that does not need to demand submission. It finds him on its own. And the nice guy Dom, if he wants to become something more, must give up the fantasy that being agreeable makes him safe. It doesn't. Only being grounded does. And that's the difference between being resented and being respected. Oh. So I hope that illustrated enough for you. All right, I got to get rid of this shit. Get out of here. That's better. So I hope that helped illustrate for you what the nice guy Dom is about, and how that could possibly be dangerous for everybody involved, because it's not really gonna use the particularities of a dynamic to make things worse. And this is kind of one of the shitty things, because like I've met some really fucked up people. Some really interesting people too that are in this dynamic, or in this lifestyle. And so, like, just because someone is in this lifestyle doesn't make them any more developed or more superior or anything like that. There's no relation. The problem is that when somebody is really fucked up, it takes all of this stuff and makes it overblown. It exaggerates it. And this is where the danger lies. So I guess the point is that even if you're not in the lifestyle, even if you're just like, yeah, no, fuck that shit. Like, I just like regular sex. I'm not into that whole thing. I'm not into sorting out the particularities of power dynamics. That if you don't have your shit together psychologically and emotionally as a man, you're walking into a predetermined doomed situation. Is it doomed 100%? Probably close. Not 100%. Sure, somebody might get lucky. But you're greatly increasing the odds of doom if you're fucked up trying to get into a relationship. And yes, I'm only speaking to men. Because girls, yes, they can be fucked up. But if you're not, and you understand how to influence, how to guide, how to create that containment, if the girl that comes into that has some baggage, it'll be a lot easier for her to let go of it due to your groundedness. So this is why relationships are difficult, because a lot of guys, possibly most, are not like that. They're not grounded. They haven't worked through their issues. They aren't that demon right at the surface and not trying to hide flaws, not trying to hide things that you were once ashamed of or feeling guilty about. They're not like this. They're not just up front with what they are, let alone who. Because the who takes a while. The who takes many years. But what you are, that can be sorted out pretty quick. If you're honest, if you allow it to happen. And so if you're first, then anyone who comes through, they can be brought into your acceptance. Just the general narrative that, like, over here, there's acceptance. Over here, there's no judgment. Over here, we have ways of processing things. Over here, we have self-awareness. So if you want to come over here, this is how we do things. And, it's not like a ramming it down your throat sort of thing. We use other things to ram down your throat, but not this. And so this is why you have to be first. You have to set the precedent. You have to set the stage, the mood, the lighting, all of it. Okay? Like, just how some of the stuff, like, if any of you viewers are, watchers of Steve, right? Steve the Dean Williams, Man Mindset. He talks about like setting the stage at home. Okay? I forget what he calls it. Like a rehearsal, or I can't remember his terminology. But it's basically like setting everything up, sound checks. I think that's what he calls it. Where you're checking your lighting, you're checking the decor, you're making sure you have all the supplies you need, that the rooms are set up, maybe a scent or something along those lines. Like, everything is kind of set up so that when the girl comes into that environment, she can feel comfortable. That things are just not like just fucking crazy or messy or weird or something like that. All right. And it's the same thing with your internal world, your internal home that she's going to be visiting. And it becomes pretty obvious if you say, like, you've got like stains on your couch and you're like, I'm just going to throw a sheet over it and like tuck it in, tuck into the cushions. It's really obvious. that you're just trying to hide this ugly piece of furniture. All right. And the same holds true for your internal home. When you're like, nah, there's no problems, I'm just going to throw a sheet over this. Like, she can see the form under the sheet, be like, duh, I can see that there's some weird shit going on, under that sheet that you've placed over your mind. I can tell you're hiding, And the real thing to do, I mean, obviously, like, before you engage with a girl, before you're doing anything with them, is to not put a sheet on there. Take it off. And I know you guys are carrying all kinds of stuff. I've talked to enough men to know that every guy is carrying something that they hide. And it can get deep. Like, some guys are just hiding from others, but some guys hide from themselves. They try to convince themselves through consistency of hiding that there's no problem. Yet their behavior shows that there is. So there's this gap. And people might make acknowledgement of that behavior. Girls that you've previously dated, or family members or friends or something like that. But the ego wants to say, no. Everything's fine. There's no problem. And like, man, maybe you should go to therapy, and like, therapy's for pussies, or, whatever. In any case, they're just trying to throw that sheet over it and go, no, there's nothing there. There's no problem. I don't need help, but they've got like a drinking problem. It's like, yeah, sure. Try to go a day without alcohol. Go ahead. Or some other form of harmful behavior, And I get all kinds of guys like this, all kinds of guys, with impulses, like crazy levels of impulses, doing all kinds of things, and they're trying to hide it because they're ashamed. But it's not going to go away through hiding. Like, you can't hide things from yourself. Try as you may, that you can't do it. The information can't be hidden. There's always going to be part of you that knows the truth. So why not just side with the truth? Integrate with the truth. And part of that, there's some darkness there. I knew this, this one fella who, he's got a pretty extreme addiction. And for the longest time, it was, kept as a secret. And he, I imagine, tried to ignore it within himself. And what this does is it creates an internal pressure. And pressure causes distortions. So imagine, say copper water pipes. They hold a certain PSI of water. Now, imagine they weren't copper. Maybe some sort of more flexible, thinner, much thinner kind of plastic. And you put pressure into it. And then you cut off a valve. So the pressure is building behind that valve. And you just turn up the water pressure. And that just starts distorting the pipe. It's no longer like a thin, clean cylinder. It's got like a blob, that's about to explode just behind that valve. And this is what happens with people. When you close off that valve, you go, now there's no problem. I don't want to look at that. I don't want to talk about it. I want to pretend that it doesn't exist. Pressure is going to build behind that valve. And sometimes that pipe will burst. And now you've got a bigger problem. So not only do you have to deal with that exploded problem, you still haven't solved the root problem that caused the pressure to begin with. Now I know you can open up that valve and there's going to be a rush that comes out of there. But does it last forever? No. It comes out and then slowly reaches some kind of an equilibrium and chills out. Now, at that point, we can leash it. Because I mentioned about how once the shadow comes out, we don't let it run amok like some wild beast. It's going to jump out, then it's going to lose steam, come to a place of, a little bit more normal, and then you can leash it. You don't shove it back in a box. You don't push it back in the corner. You accept, but you accept through obedience. So if you really want to understand obedience within women, within submission within women, you need to understand these things within yourself. Submitting parts of yourself. Collaring and leashing part of yourself. This is really important. Maybe one of even the most important things that you can possibly learn about yourself, which would then be applied, because now you have experience. Like, how could you possibly teach discipline to a girl when you haven't exercised any kind of discipline within yourself, within any area of your life? And discipline isn't when someone else gets on your back. All right, because one could say, well, going to work every day is discipline. No, it's not. No, because you need the money so you can put a roof over your head and clothes on your back and food in your belly. Okay, that's not discipline. Discipline is, well, there's many forms of discipline, but discipline is being able to do the thing that you don't want to do, but you do it anyways. That's discipline. Hey there, James. And Mr. Dukalux. Sorry, I forgot to mention, shout out to Uncle Guns for posting my links every show. Great guy there, that Uncle Guns. So, yeah, you can't, being a leader, being a dominant is not a matter of do as I say, not as I do. Because you're trying to create something. And if you're not, like, what the fuck are you doing? You're just playing. And I guess that's okay. That's okay. I shouldn't judge. If you just want to play, fine. Absolutely fine. But that's not what the Academy is about. The Academy is about building off of that dynamic. Building off of polarity. So, you could have like this baseline level of polarity. And you can play which kind of like comes up off of it. You're creating something up off of that. But then once you stop engaging, it settles back down. And then people can go their separate ways. And like, hey, that was great. Maybe let's do this again sometime. Cool. All right. But I don't like that, like, and then it's out. Like, I don't want to do that. Okay. I want this to come up. And I want this to keep going up. All right. I want to build something. So, as an artist, I never really enjoyed the Etch-a-Sketch. If you're young, you probably don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. But the Etch-a-Sketch was an interesting toy. And it was this, maybe like an 8x10 like screen with this like special sand in it. And it was gray sand. And you had these two little dials. And one dial made this little like needle move side to side. And then the other dial made it go up and down. And through these things, you could draw something on the screen just by moving these dials. Then when you're done with it, you shake it and boom, it gets erased. That's fun, but there's nothing really satisfying about it. It's like momentarily satisfying. And I guess that's the whole point, right? The impermanence of it. And I can respect. But in dealing with other people, what I'm about, what the Academy is about, is not just reveling in the impermanence of human interaction. It's more so built on foundations that can build upon itself and go further and further. Okay? So I don't want a painting that just goes back to a blank canvas at the end of the day. That's that doesn't take me anywhere. I can only go so far in X amount of time. So yeah, this is why I think it's important to understand like the deeper aspects of this stuff. If you're of the mind that wants to build, if you have that mentality, I encourage you to stick around, because that's what this is about. I want my sub to, what the fuck? Crazy ass dog, man. It's always the little ones, right? It's always the little ones who fucking carry on. The big dogs are like, what the fuck? Like, why are you making so much noise? Anyways. But like I was saying, like, with my sub, I want to see it keep going. Like, I want to see her follow the discipline of like knowledge and development to keep getting to a more and more authentic state. Like, how cool would that be? Because we all know that everybody has layers of being inauthentic, layers of inauthenticity. We all know this, and then it gets even like there's meta layers, like our social media presence. Okay, like for all you know, I could be completely different than this. And there's some people who really do put on characters for the camera. I don't even know where he is. So knowing that we have, all of these layers of inauthenticity, why not set up a system to do the work to become more and more authentic? I want to see what that looks like. That's why I go deeper. That's why I'm not just interested in playing just for playing's sake. Like, to me, that's just a waste of time. I want her to get to a point where she's questioning who she is. That's what I've done. And sit there and stare out at the abyss and go, I don't fucking know. And that's what I want her to do. Because there's great freedom in that. Someone might say, well, that sounds kind of sadistic. Well, I'm a bit of a sadist. But there's great freedom in that. Especially when you truly say, I don't know. Great benefit. Because the identity that's formed is locked in. I'm sorry, it's more caged in. I have a vision of like a cage with a lock. But this is it's not, it doesn't really provide us with much. So it's like, okay, I want to see what's underneath that. I want her to start peeling away. And this is partly the reason why, we do some of these extreme things of blindfolding, restraining mental games, physical like whippings and flogging, electrical play, fire play, ice play, like all of these things that have this intensity that brings us away from identity. It brings us away from the I who is doing the thing, and you're becoming the thing that's being done. And I think like this is the more meta side of it. This is like the deeper side of these things, because surely somebody could be like, you know what, I just like to whip asses. I know a guy who's like that. Not whipping, but spanking. He doesn't see it as like some transcendent thing. He's just like, you know what? I really like spanking. I like doing it a lot. He even has like a YouTube channel. He's got a podcast, like an audio podcast, an IG. And like literally he has like a business on this. So part of his business is girls come to get spanked. They pay him to be bent over his knee and spanked. How great is that? Like I can't knock him for that at all. It sounds fun, and I doubt he thinks of anything in some sort of like metaphysical sense, and that's fine. But this is me, and I don't want you to take what I say as like the way. Because there is no the way. This is my way. This is the Academy's way. And there's other schools of thought around these things. But the way I see it here at this school is that it's a pathway through personal growth and transformation for the Dom as well as the sub, but through him. And so you get this really great trickle-down effect. And I tell my guys, like as I'm coaching them, I'm saying, listen, you need to remember this stuff that's happening with you because you are going to be a coach someday. Or you're going to be a coach soon for your wife or for your girlfriend. What's happening here? All right. Just catching updates. So yeah, while I'm like delaminating them and deconditioning them, they're then becoming coaches themselves. They become coaches for their women. Because if you learn to create the emotional environment for her to feel safe enough to let down her guard, to accept and expect your guidance, you need to know what to guide and how to guide. It's not just a matter of showing up. Surely your presence is like the number one thing. How you show up, okay? But it doesn't end there. You have to then take that, because that's just potential energy, right? You have to turn it into like something kinetic energy. And this is the way of your leading, okay? And that kinetic energy can be mental or physical or emotional. And so when a woman has like kind of chosen to let her guards down and open herself up to you, she's going to be expecting you to do something, because she's not going to be assertive. She's not going to take things upon herself to, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make this decision, I'm going to do that. She's going to be looking to you for guidance, like in many areas of her life, until, unless you decide that there's going to be more and more of what's in her life under your watch, under your command. And that would be an interesting negotiation if you came across a girl, or your girl decided that she would love to have less and less responsibility. And you're like, you know what? I don't want to take that on. I like the amount of responsibility that I have. I don't want to take on more, you know, and that's legit. Like, that's completely legitimate. Like, because people think like, oh, well, Dom's like, like boundaries and things like that are there for the sub. No, you can have your own boundaries as well. And you can say that goes beyond my boundaries. I don't want to take on all of your fucking responsibilities. And then there's some Doms who absolutely do. They really, really want all of the control. They like it. So you then can negotiate, or you can find someone that aligns with your level of control. I'm more of the mind of not wasting my time. Not to say that working things out and negotiating is a waste of time, but it takes time. And I don't like to take a lot of time on stuff. Just like with the rope, I'm a little impatient. So I would much rather just switch out and find a person that aligns more with where I'm at and go from there. But it helps, kind of going back to that demon imagery. It really helps when you are showing up honestly. Because then she can kind of like look at the outline shape, the silhouette of your puzzle piece. The more authentic and real you are, the more honest you are, the more defined that silhouette is of your puzzle piece. And she can figure out like, oh, okay, that fits with me. Or like, no, you know what? Even if I try, it's not going to fit with me. So this is important. This is why we can't be fake Doms out here. Why we can't be nice guy Doms. Why we have to encourage ourselves to be honest, first with ourselves, such that we can be comfortable with our authenticity. And then that's how we can show up more honestly to the world, to other men, and to women. And with that, I'm going to end this stream. I didn't realize that it had gone on this long, but here we are, top of the hour. So I appreciate you guys joining me here. Join me here this evening, this nice December evening. And I look forward to seeing you again. All right, until next time, this is the Dominance Academy, signing out.